Hello, welcome to my channel. This is nearing the end of my series for safe locations state by state for the United States. In this particular video, I'm going to be covering Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey. Pennsylvania is touched on, but I will do more on Pennsylvania through the New England states in my next video. Now, something happened during this video, and I do touch on it when I'm discussing Ohio, and that is that I had a vision as to what the tear is going to look like, the New Madrid tear that's going to tear off the eastern seaboard, speaking roughly, is going to look like somewhere in Ohio. So you can listen for that. That'll be coming up in Ohio. And so now I also conclude this video with an overview of a combination mostly of ZetaTalk. I draw on that, but geography and the various things that I study beforehand, of the whole process of the rundown to the pole shift, starting with the New Madrid, and then we go through the rundown to the months before the pole shift, where you have a sea level loss in the eastern seaboard, varying, and I cover that. And then we have the rotation stoppage, and you have the movement of the sea at that point. And then we have the pole shift, and we have more movement of the sea. And then we have after the pole shift, where you have the sea coming back to more or less normal levels, except for the eastern seaboard here, where you have that loss of 150 feet. And then you have the pole melt, which now you have approximately anywhere from 675 to 450 feet loss of sea level on the high, and 675, actually 825 in the southern states. So it's complicated, and I'm covering it the best I can, and so I end up the video with that. And so let's move right into Ohio. Okay, I'm going to discuss the state of Ohio. Now, the state of Ohio, for the run-up to the pole shift, including the New Madrid fault line adjustment and the after time, is probably the most complicated state that I've just studied so far. On a personal note, I've been working quite hard on the study of it. I studied the ZetaTalk on it, and I studied the Wikipedia and various articles written about, mostly about the New Madrid. And so at one point I'm going to just break from my normal sort of reporting, and I'm just going to give you a personal vision I had for Ohio. Now, this is not a vision from ego. So Ohio, actually, for the pole shift itself, according to ZetaTalk, is, as they say, it's going to be a very, well, I'll have to paraphrase, a very easy or unremarkable time for the pole shift. But the biggest problem with Ohio is the New Madrid event, because it's going to sink the land in southern Ohio. After the New Madrid, the land to the west is going to lose elevation, especially in southern Ohio, southwestern Ohio. Now, eastern Ohio is also a little bit complex. So let's get into the rock first. Let's look at the rock. You know what? And before we do the rock, we're going to do what's driving the rock. Now, I know I've covered this before, but this might help. We have the mid-Atlantic ridge. I'm not going to go into all the description of why that's important, but the land to the east of the mid-Atlantic ridge, the Atlantic sea floor just off the east coast of North America and U.S. We're discussing this here. Pardon me, we're discussing something in here. Actually, we're over here. So the issue is that the land is losing support here. So what's happening is that North America itself as an object, as a massive plate, is not actually going to move. So is any fissures and cracks around it, such as the Mesoamerica in here, or the east coast of the eastern seaboard of the United States, they have to move. So what's happening is that North America itself is the pressure is being pulled down. It's also being pressed in other ways with the rolling of South America this way, towards Mexico, this way. But it's being pulled down. But of course it's resisting. So where is it going to break? It's going to break right through here. Follow the cursor right through like that. It's going to break right through there like that. So when it breaks, that leaves the eastern seaboard to actually bob back up a little bit. But it also allows the portion of the North American plate just to the west of the New Madrid. This is after the fault line splits, probably mostly occurring during the pole shift, but some during the New Madrid. The western portion of the North America to the west of the New Madrid fault line will lose elevation. Cincinnati is on very, very solid rock. And as the rock ages, the rock gets younger from western Ohio to eastern Ohio. That's why it's going to split up here and go along the bottom of the southern Ohio, and then on into. We'll show you the progression here. Here's Ohio here, and there's the Ohio River there, and this is the New Madrid fault line. Now please follow my cursor underneath southern Ohio through New Madrid proper, goes lateral for a bit and dips down towards Texas and goes through Texas, and then it's going to go into Mexico. So this whole line is going to adjust very, very heavily. You can see the fault lines here. These maps can be available on request. They're on the internet, but they're actually not that easy to find in some cases. But what is that? So here we have Ohio here, like in here. So we're going to snap. We're going to split down here. It's going to underneath the lakes here, and of course it's going to go up, and it's going to the split is going to go up into the Gulf of St. Lawrence here. You can see this very old rock here. Well, you see the difference in the ages of the rock. This is extremely old rock here, extremely old. This is younger, but it's going to split down the St. Lawrence. It's got this, and this whole section here is going to drop. It's going to move like out. It's going to open up, but that's bullshit. But it's going to split through there, and this way, underneath the lakes, and it's going to drop down here. So now the thing is, as we'll get, okay, so anyways, it goes this way. You can see the fault lines, the difference in the age of the rock there. It's going to zoom underneath there. We got all the fault lines here in the New Madrid. Through here, New Madrid is through here. So we got these fault lines here. Boom, it's going to go around that. I think it's going to go around. This is younger rock right here. The yellow and the light orange is young rock, like so, and then through these here, and then on its way into you can see all the fault lines here going this way, so that way into Mexico. So that is kind of like that's the likelihood of the split. Now the important thing for Ohio is here, and this is my third or fourth take, I believe, on doing this. So I missed it the first time through, and that is, we know that there are mountains, Appalachians to the east in Ohio. And so I wanted to, okay, so what we're going to have is a split, what I believe split down through here. Columbus is going to be wet, much wetter than people think. And then of course Cincinnati is going to be completely soaked. But we'll get to that in a sec. Cleveland's going to retain, according to ZetaTalk, is going to retain its height, and I think its height, and I think that's because of the its nearness to the really, really old rock that the Great Lakes are set in. So we have an area here that I realized is going to do better than I thought, and that's the Appalachian Mountains in this area here. Youngstown, well, Youngstown looks pretty low. Let's take a look. 9, that's pretty lowish. But we're getting up into the Appalachians here. So is a section of the Appalachian Mountains that I missed the first take. And I think it's going to do, now it's going to be rough for the New Madrid, but it's not going to be right in the action of the split, which I believe is right through here. Okay, so Youngstown, for example, is right on the borderline between Ohio and Pennsylvania. So we have this zone in here like that. So this rock is going to, I think, is going to do well. It's just it's going to be an extremely rough ride because you're right on the happening, but it's not going to split directly in that area through there. It's just over this way. Now, so I think that if people were up in these Appalachians in this area, I think you could find a way to survive in here. But southern Ohio loses elevation. So what? See, normally, if you did a flood map, 675 foot pole melt, Columbus looks like it's okay. But according to ZetaTalk, and I'm agreeing, and I have another reason for agreeing. You'll see shortly. Is that it's going to be much lower than you think in southern Ohio. It's going to be very, very wet and flooding. So the good news with Ohio is that you will have a channel, because after the New Madrid occurs, you're going to have a channel through here, a rift opening up, and the seawater is going to flow in from the new Mississippi Gulf. So you have access to the sea. So that is absolutely fabulous. But the New Madrid makes it very difficult for Ohioans to survive in the southern areas, and as I've said before, the problems with plains in the north western Ohio is you're exposed to the military, and we know that Kokomo is going to be in here, wherever Kokomo is going to be the one attempt by the U.S. government to carry on for a carry-on government. So, oh, my mistake. That's in the Kokomo is in Indiana. But at any rate, there will be military flyovers through these plains, because you'll be easily seen if you're set up in here. Like, I don't see any. I've never been to Ohio, and I can tell you, after doing all this work on the on the country of the United States, it's really made me wish I had traveled through the states to see the land. But it's so flat there, and if you're in this area, then you absolutely have to be camouflaged, and you need to have lots of propane and cooking equipment for the aftertime, so you won't leave a smoke trail. So that's a problem with northwestern Ohio. Again, we have some mountains here that could be good, but you're going to go for a heavy ride. Now I'm going to just break away from my normal reporting here. Now I just want to make a comment, just talk a bit about visions. Everyone gets visions. Most people don't notice them. I've spoken of waking dreams, and what I'm talking about here is not actually a waking dream, but waking dreams are very closely related to visions, to signs, omens. A dream vision for me is information that's more accurate, much more accurate, but the receiving it is very much more tricky. You usually have your visions either just as you go to sleep or as you wake up. You have to have a little bit of consciousness in there. If you have a little bit of ego consciousness, then you can get the vision and get the information without a whole lot of allegory to it. You know, most people have dreams. It's kind of crazy making events and stuff. It's hard to figure out. That's because you're absolutely asleep. And I'll go into it, but I won't go into it. But and I could, but I won't. But what I want to describe to you is I had a vision. Now, sorry for the personal note here, but it's very important that I say this. Doing Ohio has been very stressful because it's so tricky due to the New Madrid. And of course, the study of the New Madrid has been very detailed, and in preparation for doing this video. So consequently, when I'm working for a few hours on the computer, my eyes get tired. So I have to have little rests. So I took a rest. It was last night, I believe. I was going to do the video last night, and I just couldn't do it. I was just too tired. So I had a rest, and I had a vision. And because I've been working so hard on Ohio and the New Madrid, the vision was about it. And I had a few other dreams, but that was over sleep dreams. But this was a vision. And the vision, this is what I saw. I was just a light sleep, and I was still a little bit awake, and this vision passed in front of my eyes. And this is what I saw. Now, I Googled this to try to find something that was close to what I saw. Now you see the talus here. These are taluses, and they accumulate from dropping soil and rock and sand, and you can see there's vegetation growing on them there like that. That doesn't exist in what I saw. They were sheer cliffs, and they were orangey looking, no taluses. And this might be a slight version of what I saw, because I think what I saw in my vision was that it was a river, a very thin line of a river in front of it. Now it was back about, I think, about a half a mile, or maybe a mile, and these cliffs look like, from my vision, I would say they're a good 50, 60, 100 feet, maybe high. So that was my vision. So I wanted to pass it on to you. So I think that those riding on the Appalachians in Ohio and we'll do Pennsylvania eventually, or West Virginia, are going to be on the high side. So there's going to be cliffs popping up, and that's what I wanted to pass on to you. So for Ohio, the plains I don't recommend because of the military visibility. I think that to the extreme east of Ohio, and if you can, we'll do Pennsylvania. I'll have to do that. But the extreme east will be a rough ride, but I think is possible. And of course, to the south. But then the southeast here. But we have, I'm going to go 700 feet. So we're going to have a lot of flooding through this area here in southern Ohio. So this will be the pole melt. Now you won't know this you won't see this after the New Madrid. You will only know this during at the pole melt. So if you're situated in somewhere here, and say in this little town here, South Web, I don't know the towns, I'm sorry. Looks like South Webster. If you're situated, on a mountain, on a hill here in South Webster, and the New Madrid has happened, and now you're rubbing your hands in glee that you survived it, but this is what it looks like right after the New Madrid. There's no flooding. So you may not know that you've dropped and lost elevation. And if you do a Google search, go to ZetaTalk, the poles are going to, the pole melt's going to be 75, and you think, oh, this is great, I'll be fine. But no, because you have lost elevation. That's my whole point, and it's going to be much worse than you think. For the pole shift, it does fine. But for the New Madrid, it's very, very rough, and you lose elevation in the south. You're going to have more flooding than you think. There will be a bay, a rift that moves through here that'll fill with seawater, so that'll be great for people in the aftertime in this area access to the new Mississippi Gulf. And if you go, if you're set on riding out the pole shift, the New Madrid and the pole shift in Ohio, then please move to your safe location in the Appalachians sooner, and be prepared a year at a time for your pole shift preparation, because once the New Madrid hits, I believe there will be no assistance coming from the U.S. government, because they'll be so they'll be inundated with needed help for the who knows how many people in here, 50 million people, 40 million or more people, and all the damage. It'll be, so it's going to be highly unlikely that you'll get any assistance before the pole shift. And of course the government is going to be looking after itself in the rundown of the pole shift, and indeed they already have by with their installations, secret installations, so-called secret installations. So that's the state of Ohio. Okay, we're going to look at West Virginia and Virginia. We'll kind of put them together. The reason is, as you can see here with the dark blue, this will be the new coastline just prior to the pole shift. Also, there will be the 200-foot tsunami that will have happened, or it will happen by this time. The New Madrid will have happened, so you're going to have a lot of preoccupation in the country with all the damage through Ohio down Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Oklahoma, through Texas, and into Mexico. This whole area is going to be damaged all through here. All the bridges are down on the Mississippi, probably the Ohio as well, and we likely have some bluffs occurring here in Ohio up through here, possibly or just along the river here, the southern area of Ohio. So you're going to have, but this time you had a lot of devastating action. So there's a lot of movement. There's going to be a lot of movement of people towards high land. Also, by then we don't know if there will have been an announcement by then about the pole shift or Planet X. So at the first sign of problems like this New Madrid, there's likely to be a big rush into West Virginia. Also, obviously Virginia. And then of course in the aftertime, after the pole melt, we're looking at, now ignore this end here, it won't be quite as bad over here in southern Ohio. No, it won't be good for at all, because but it won't be quite so deep. I've got the 823 here for the coast, because that includes the loss of elevation of Virginia's coast. In fact, that'll be pretty much the whole of the coast will have gone down 150, but plus the pole melt. So this will be about 2025. This loss. So that's going to push a lot of people into obviously Western Virginia and West Virginia. So there's going. So now that the problem that now, of course, West Virginia itself is beautifully situated in the, and indeed so is the Western Virginia, beautifully situated in the Blue Ridge Mountains and the other mountains here, the Appalachians. So it's as far as survival is concerned, is excellent, and as far as an after-time environment, it is a very excellent place. But there is one caveat that comes up in ZetaTalk, and I had this confirmed actually by one of my the people that commented on one of my websites. I actually asked her specifically about West Virginia, and she gave me a little blurb, which I was very thankful for, which underlined and basically confirmed that West Virginia is known to be quite a bit of poverty there. And so you have two extremes. You have the poverty, the general poverty in some areas of West Virginia, and you have the wealthy and the powerful in Washington moving towards West Virginia. And of course, in the aftertime, the state boundaries they're not going to be of any value. They're not going to be respected. And why should they? I'm not saying anything either way. I'm just saying people will not think about state boundaries when they want to get safe. So Virginia and West Virginia will be a mix of a fair amount of poverty and the wealthy and the powerful. So there's going to be quite a mix. A volatile mix there. So if somebody's setting up in West Virginia or Virginia, they're going to need a very strong community, and you're going to need to be very hidden. And so that means also, unfortunately, since there's going to be strife involved there, it's probably advantageous to be able to defend yourself. And that's all I want to say on that. You should be able to defend yourself and defend your territory. So that's the problem with these beautiful mountains, gorgeous mountains. I obviously, after a few years, the fighting will have settled down and may even out. So if you have a good, strong community of people, then you could have a great location. But it's not for. I don't imagine it's for the faint of heart. So that would be the problem of West Virginia, and of course, now focusing a bit on Virginia. There's going to be a lot of migration into the hills. So any of these towns in above the fray, as far as the pole melt's concerned, will be experiencing a great deal of flow through of migrants, which is going to be a big problem for these people. So if you live in these towns, you're better off to find yourself a little piece of land somewhere where you can go to some of these places and set up camp and stay hidden if you want to stay in this area. Being hidden is very, very important because it just solves so many problems. Also we have some nuclear stations. They are we've got 6 of them, and they will be underwater. They'll be underwater in Virginia. None in West Virginia, which is good news for those who want to locate in West Virginia, and also in southeastern Ohio. So that's good news for them. So that's a great positive point. Now on the radiation, now the radiation I've covered before And well, I just suffice it to say there's a lot of hype about radiation, and it's not a good thing. As I've said before, for people in other states, you really should have potassium iodide pills, and have a lot of them, so you can keep your thyroid charged up with clean iodine, and that way you'll resist the absorption of iodine, radioactive iodine, into your thyroid. I also encourage anyone who is afraid of the radiation and it's a healthy fear, but it's important to be educated. But take a look at the babushkas of Chernobyl, and they, in a sentence, they've been living there since 1986, 87, and these babushkas look pretty healthy to me. And also, if you read about some of the how the wildlife is taken over in the Ukraine and Belarus, and those areas were affected by the Chernobyl event. Don't forget, it was a level 7 event. It's the worst you can get, and they're all doing pretty fine. So research that, get educated about that. So these will be underwater in the aftertime. So the good thing about that is any issues with the radiation will not be airborne. And of course, bear in mind that there's going to be trillions of gallons, many hundreds of thousands of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cubic miles of fresh water added to the world's oceans, and they'll be well mixed, so it'll be well dispersed. So just do some research on that. So that is Virginia. So as you can see, it's not a preferred place to be unless you have a lot of family connections and a strong survival community, and you have the wherewithal to set up an encampment that's well hidden, protected. It could be very good, but and not to be seen by migrants, and have propane cooking and propane for the aftertime. I'm getting 5 years, so that once all the strife is finished, as things settle down a bit, then you can go back to using wood or whatever to cook with. So the propane will give you that invisibility of not having a smoke trail in the sky to be seen. Not only not to be seen by migrants or others, because don't forget, it's a lawless environment, the aftertime. So that's another reason why you want to stay hidden. It's a lawless environment, so we definitely want to bear that in mind. And again, one will need to be able to defend themselves. So it's a difficult place, but sociologically, but obviously a wonderful place geologically. So that is West Virginia and Virginia. So now we are going to look at states Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey. But before I start in on these states, I want to overview something that is happening in this area. We have a full point from Montreal down to New York, right through there. And we also have the known rip along, opening up the St. Lawrence Seaway into a gulf that'll probably extend down to Montreal and beyond, possibly even into this great lake here, Lake Ontario. Because of the separation of this piece of land, if you take a look at the map, you'll see that that piece of land is different rock. This is all different age of rock compared to what's in Canada. This is much older rock, by the way, but this is still good rock here in New England, and but we're starting before New England. So, anyways, this area here, this rock, is going to separate from its bond with the Canadian Shield Craton down up the seaway, and possibly as far as Lake Ontario. So, as it happens, that it's about this point here, this full point here, according to ZetaTalk. And if you look at the map again, you can see here. We're in New York. Well, this is the run here. This will be New York in here somewhere, and this will be Montreal. So this is going to bend. By the way, if you found a safe location, well, don't have a safe location in this ridge here. It's bending upwards, so this land is going to compress here somewhat. There's this danger strip, in my opinion, up through these lakes, this area. You can see so we're talking about Albany. Albany will be, even though this is safe land, essentially, but Albany's right in the fold. Poughkeepsie, Kingston, Troy, Saratoga Springs, Glens Falls, Lake George, Burlington, and through here, Plattsburgh. This area is going to fold. So back to the point I was making is that we're starting with Maryland. We're starting to get into what ZetaTalk refers to as a bounce up. So what I've done is I'm using 500 feet here for now. And the reason why I'm starting with 500 feet is I'm trying to be generous with the pole melt, or on the conservative side of generous for the pole melt. 2025. This is after New Madrid, after the pole shift, and this is after the pole melt, 2025-ish. So you're going to have Delaware completely underwater. So Delaware is out. The only possible state, speaking strictly state by state, and I will be doing an overview at the end of this, New Jersey also is mostly underwater. So the only area will be in this, where New Jersey goes into the mountains here. But there's other problems with these mountains here that people need to know about if they're not thinking about it. So basically, I'm going to defer New Jersey into Pennsylvania, and Yeah, because it's very close in there. So I'm going to defer and consider New Jersey, the extreme northwestern part of New Jersey, as part of Pennsylvania in the aftertime, because nobody be looking at won't be concerned about borders in the aftertime. Their land, yes, but not borders. So state borders. So what is happening? As I said, the land after the pole shift is when it tears. This land here is free to lift up because it's not bonded to the North American plate that in this area that's being pulled down. This area, the North American plate in this area is being pulled down. And so now as I've said before, the southern from West Virginia on is southward to Florida is all being pulled down and will stay down. But the states to the northeast from Pennsylvania northeastward are being bounced up. Now the sequence of events will be okay. So what we're going to have during the pole shift is this tear. But people will be lulled into thinking that the coastlines are going to be more available because during rotation stoppage, which is just the week prior to the pole shift. Remember, rotation stoppage, then it's about a week or 6 days of a still sun. So if you're in the Atlantic, very likely this will be occurring during the morning hours, the late morning. You will be stopped in orbit, and the mid-Atlantic ridge will be locked onto planet X. So that'll hold it in that position. So you'll be in the UK. It'll be the afternoon, mid-afternoon, and then in eastern seaboard it'll be the mid-morning. So during that period of time of 6 days or so, since Earth is not rotating on its axis, what will happen is that with the lack of rotating, the sea bulge around the equator will seek to equalize. So what happens then is all the seawater of the world will migrate to the poles to even out the sea water pressure throughout the world, the globe. So at that point, a person may think, oh, it's okay, but it's definitely not. So what will happen then is you will have the pole shift. This tear will separate the eastern seaboard, and what will happen is that after the tear, this peninsula is becoming its peninsula will bounce up 450 feet. So if you have to prorate the height from this area here, the head of the peninsula, to Montreal. So to Montreal, and then so this from Montreal to New York, this whole section will go up 450 feet. So it would look like 450 and 225 at Quebec City in Maine, central Maine, and then slowly equalize to somewhere in Vermont and Pennsylvania, in this area here. So that's why I'm using 500, because ZetaTalk says that Pennsylvania will have a bounce up. So, okay, so you understand the sequence then. So you first, the water recedes. Then we have the rotation during rotation stoppage. Then we have the pole shift, and then the waves come in and wash the coastlines free of anyone and anything that's within about 100 miles of the coast. And then the water will more or less recede. It takes a week or so for for various places to drain, but then now you're looking at this again. But of course, nobody alive is on the coast. So people may think they can go back to the coast, but you can't, of course, because the pole melt. And here again, I'm going to put about 500 because we're talking about Maryland. I'm just going to say that my best guess would be about 500 or 600 foot pole melt, because don't forget, this area has bounced up. This whole area has bounced up. So, but anyone planning to do any if you're serious about planning for a safe location, being, for example, here is not a good idea at all anyways. You want to be in the mountains regardless. So you've got wonderful areas to go to. Wonderful areas to go to. In Maryland, of course, does get rather narrow as you go west. But as I said, you're going to be absorbed into basically Pennsylvania. So that's Maryland. That's Delaware, and New Jersey, as I said, is there's a bit of highland. So that's the issue with these three states. So I will do an overview of this area at the end of this video, so that we have an overview of what's going to happen again. So that is Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey. And of course the other thing is, as I've said before, there's no sense discussing a landmass is going to be under the waves. So, but the issue will be, of course, migration. And what keeps coming up in ZetaTalk, and it makes a lot of sense, it makes perfect sense, that you have the elite living in these areas, and they will be looking to relocate in the highland. Here's your Washington D.C. You have the elite. So there will be big problems with the migrants coming into the highland here. So I will conclude with that. Okay, I'd like to conclude this video. We started with Ohio, and then we moved into West Virginia and Virginia, and then we did some analysis of Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey. So, but I wanted to just to conclude with what's an overview of what is going to happen to the eastern seaboard, especially the northeastern portion, from about the New Madrid forward to a week before, at rotation stoppage, a week before the pole shift, and then the aftertime. So obviously we know there's going to be a tear from the St. Lawrence Seaway down underneath these lakes, through Ohio, across southern Ohio, down through southern Illinois and eastern Missouri, New Madrid area. down. Now it's going to zoom over a little bit, northern Arkansas, I believe, because there's a young rock in here, and it goes over this rock, and then it goes through central Oklahoma, and then it goes behind the Balcones, and then into Mexico. That causes a tremendous amount of stress on the U.S. administration for disaster relief that will never really be satisfied, because at that point, let's remember that there's quite likely to have been an announcement of the pole shift. This is going to be, I think, approximately 2022 or late 2021. So the tear will have started. The disaster relief will be in full swing as best it can go. And of course, that means the supplies and manufacturing will slow down, and supplies will be hard to get. So, as I keep saying, if you live in these areas, specifically along that New Madrid fault line and these states like that, you have to prepare for the pole shift 1 year earlier, and get a boat if you're going to try to. If you're going to try to stay in the central states, you're going to need a boat or two. So that's happening. So now we have the rundown to the pole shift. Now we know there's going to be a lot of social unrest. So you got to figure on that. Again, that affects the supply. People stop working when they get mad, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. So we're going to run down to rotation stoppage. So when that happens, we are looking at the North Atlantic being locked on at noon position. So the sun will be at high noon. The eastern seaboard of the U.S. will be mid-morning, and in Spain and the UK it'll be mid-afternoon. And there it will stay for about 6 days. During that period of time, since the Earth has stopped rotating, the water that accumulates naturally around the equator, and gradually, obviously, as the centrifugal force lessens towards the poles, accumulates in that way. What happens then is that the water will want to recede to the poles to equalize the water pressure throughout the globe. This will happen during the rotation stoppage. So when the sun goes still in the sky, then you know that your coastlines in this area of the U.S. are going to recede. So, but there's another problem, and that is that prior to the pole shift, the whole eastern seaboard of the U.S. will be pulled down. This is prior to the pole shift. So I'm skip back a bit to the months before the pole shift, before rotation stoppage. So we're roughly looking at about a 200 foot drop, rise in the sea level. Which now that's what we're looking at. So the sea comes in, forms a new coastline. And so anyone who may be in this area might be confused about what happens next, and that is during the rotation stoppage, the water level will drop somewhat. So let's call it 150 feet. So now the water level settles back a little bit, and because the water seawater has migrated to the poles, the two different poles. So now Okay, so now we have the rotation, that's rotation stoppage. Now, what happens next is that 6 days later we have the pole shift. So the poles now are on the equator. Now they melt. So after the pole shift, oh, now let's just back up. We've got pole shift waves to deal with at the pole shift. So we've got wash of the pole shift waves. Given red, this is going to be the wash. Now obviously it's not reaching all the way up into Illinois, but it probably as far as Kentucky. The seawater will wash up that high. Obviously it'll be a lot slower in western Kentucky, Nashville, Tennessee, Missouri, rather eastern Missouri. Won't be moving as fast, but it'll be full of trash. So it'll be swirling through there. So now, okay, so we just ignore it past Illinois here. So you have the seawater washing in during the pole shift. So now that scours the coasts. So now we're back to it recedes. After a week or two, we're back to a situation where we have on the coast a 150-foot drop, because now the we have the tear has happened, completely separating down this landmass here. You can see it there. So this rock is very different. It tears off the craton of the Canadian craton up here. So that tears away. So when that happens, when that tears away, you have the bounce up that we've been talking about. So then we have the bounce up at the extreme northeastern part of the peninsula at 450 feet. And we go down to Quebec City, it's going to be about 200, 250 feet up. And this is the fold point here, and I've said it's not a good idea to locate in that fold point, right through there. So, now, so this is during the pole shift, this separates, and you have this fold and the bounce up. So then, once that completes, we have another flood coming in. And we have approximately 675 feet on average now from the poles melting, flooding in, forming the final coastline, which more or less will look like this in the southern states. And in the northeastern states of the USA, we're looking at roughly something like this. But as we've been saying, we have to be in the highlands anyways, and there's no sense in trying to stay too close to the. It's possible if you know the land. If you live here, you know the land. So you can do the calculations. Here it's going to be about a 300-foot bounce up, and here it's going to be about a 175-foot bounce up, and we know that Pennsylvania will be, I'm guessing, about 50 feet up when the dust is settled. Oops. 50 feet. So that is the complicated set of affairs that are going to unfold for this area And essentially, really, you just want to be on high land, and then you're just going to have to find the coast afterwards. And the other thing, of course, will be the migrants, the wealthy and the elite moving into the highlands from the flooded coasts and Washington, D.C., and all the wealthy. And so the advice there is to go to your highland location beforehand, set up your home and early, and make sure you do it before the end of this decade, by 2020, in my opinion, and be prepared in that way rather than trying to be with the rush in the last year or so, which will be dominated by the New Madrid, because everyone's going to want to move then. So who knows what the public consciousness is going to be about the pole shift at that time. So the suggestion is get there early, set up. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching.